Welcome to Toxicology, brought to you by Recovery Unplugged, the place where we talk about all things substance abuse, recovery, and mental health, with guests offering varying perspectives and viewpoints. Hosts Joseph Gordo and Jason Cabello share about their addiction and recovery and other serious subject matter through lighthearted yet candid conversation. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey.
Thanks.
Hi.
Thanks. What's your last name?
Gordo.
You guys have way more Mexican names than I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm Patricia,
Yeah.
but Drew.
Yeah. And Lynn.
So
Lynn.
my full name's Jose Antonio Gordo Cano.
Yeah, that's super
Yeah.
Mexican.
Yeah.
Mexican AF,
That is.
as the
Yeah.
children say.
Yeah.
They probably don't say that anymore though.
Yeah.
AF?
Yeah, like I'm trying to catch up, but I'm perpetually behind.
He would know.
I have middle schoolers.
Oh.
They don't. I'm still trying to figure out if Skibbity is good or bad.
See, haven't heard that one.
You've never heard Skibbity?
Nope.
Oh, man. Yeah. There's Skibbity Riz. Skibbity.
Have you
whatever.
heard On God?
On God? Yeah. That means like, I
See,
swear to God.
I just learned this.
Really? That's
No.
On God.
On God. I thought it meant something else. Or maybe
it's like I swear to God is where it kind of
But it can also be a question. Like,
think
you
it
can
can
tell
also-
me something and I could be like, on God?
yeah, like
yeah,
you
I
swear
think
to
it
God.
can also be like a confirmation.
Yes.
yeah, like I
Right?
swear to God.
Yeah.
Or do you swear to
Yeah.
God?
Yeah. I'd be like, on
Yeah.
God.
See, I don't.
I'll beat your ass.
I should just stop trying.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's actually how I first learned it was on God, I beat your ass from two adolescents trying to fight with each other.
Did he? Beat
No.
his ass? No. He just claimed it.
No.
So if
In my
there
experience,
were,
guys who say they'll beat your ass
yeah,
never do.
my opinion, if somebody says on God I'll beat your ass and doesn't, they should be struck by lightning and fucking killed by God. Anyway,
In a flood.
Blasphemy.
yeah.
Oh,
Mine's only 3. I only have one, and he's 3 years old.
Does
so
he have Riz?
See, I don't know.
Riz is charisma.
He has a lot
Yes.
He had a lot of Riz.
of Riz.
Okay, what's his name?
On God.
On God. what's his name?
His name is Lawson.
That name has Riz.
Lawson?
Lawson Wells, Manchester.
What?
Love it. That sounds like a soccer team.
That sounds regal.
Good one. It's good, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like a soccer
love
team.
it.
Like, what club do you support? Lawson Wells men.
You spend a lot of time across the pond, correct?
I have
in the
spent
UK,
quite
yeah.
a bit of time.
You got you have a bit
Lots
of a
of fish and
following there.
chips.
Lots of fish and chips. Lots of
Curry.
with a lot of chavs and whatnot.
Mhm.
A lot of fun. Do you know what a chav is? Okay.
Jason is a bit of an Anglophile.
I am such an Anglophile. As a kid, my first obsession was to be like an English soccer hooligan, like a mod, like skinhead type, ska skinhead type, not
Not a real-
not
not-
like
not a white
Aryan skinhead
supremacist.
type.
Yeah.
Right. But that was like my first love. So anything English, like I think it started from Willy Wonka, seeing like, because Willy Wonka was definitely, even though Charlie had an American accent, you could tell it was definitely filmed in the UK, and just like
Yes.
on Nickelodeon back then in the early
You
80s.
need yourself.
Yeah. They used to show a lot of shows from the UK, and it was always like
David the Gnome.
it was, I don't know about David Gnome, but they had this horror show. It was sort of like a kids horror show,
Are You
kind of
Afraid
like
of the Dark?
No, it was like a predecessor to Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps or those things, but it was and it was just very drab, and everybody looked like they were working
Like
in
they
an
hated themselves
English
and ate
factory.
for breakfast every day.
and it spoke to me so much. So a chav is council housed and violent. So it's like the street kids who are like Burberry and always
So the troublemakers.
the troublemakers. Yeah,
Okay.
I want to be a chav.
You ever seen the movie Romper Stomper?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course,
Classic.
classic.
Welcome
So-
to the show.
well, again,
Again.
we haven't seen each other in a while.
Yeah,
so
no, this is
you-
great.
You could tell we get excited and we like to grab ass a little
I'm
bit.
just here to facilitate this.
Okay.
Let's
Well,
go
thank
there.
you.
In the actual show, there's going to be a whole introduction where we'll say who you are, but for the sakes of our current state, I forgot how to talk.
Or not.
It's
I don't know
good.
if we're doing. Remember,
Yeah.
I think we aren't we bypassing the
Well,
intro and going right in there?
I don't know, but we've established that your name is Patty
Patty.
and you have many last names.
So yeah, so many names.
But there's got to be more reasons than that for why you're here. Although we love Patties in general.
Yeah. Well, I expressed some anxiety coming in because I listened to a few previous episodes and I found that a lot of your guests do have experience being in recovery. It's part of their story.
It's questionable for some of them.
Yeah.
What, that they're lying?
No, I'm just
Okay. So I had some anxiety coming in thinking that you had maybe assumed that I had been in recovery before, and I haven't.
Right.
But I love talking about recovery in general, not necessarily recovery from addiction or substance use, but mental health, and just like trying to be the best version of yourself always, and that always being a process. Like you never arrive, you know?
So I'm actually really curious, you know, when you had that anxiety of like, oh my God, like what if they think I'm in recovery, and I get on the show and I sit down and they're like, oh, you're not in recovery.
Fuck out of here.
Like what came up for you in that thought? Was it like, oh my God, like my opinion or my thoughts aren't valid because I'm not in recovery? Or like what came up emotionally? And
yeah, it's just, okay, like I feel like imposter syndrome comes up for me quite a bit in many life circumstances and situations. And I try to combat imposter syndrome with just my love of learning. Like I love to learn. And so when I was thinking about being here and maybe being different from your other guests in that I haven't been through a recovery process of my own, I was also thinking, well, I may not have had, you know, a real hard time with substances in my life, but it doesn't mean I haven't had a hard time and been through recoveries of my own. And I also wanted to treat this as like an opportunity to learn more about recovery and learn more about Recovery Unplugged. And I know that the podcast isn't about Recovery Unplugged, but it does come up.
Title sponsor, Recovery Unplugged.
Yeah. So I wanted to take the opportunity to learn more than anything.
So one thing that you'll learn is that me and Jason are very liberal on the recovery spectrum. Yes. You know, recovery is like anything else in this country where there's left wing and right wing and militant views and very liberal views. And we're definitely liberal. And
I used to not be. I used to be very, very hard-lined, work the steps or die. This is the only way to do it. And I have changed my ways.
Yeah. And same thing, right? Like I got sober, like old school hardcore big book, which is like, work the steps or die, motherfucker. Yeah. Like complete abstinence, throw away your meds, don't listen to your therapist.
Still work the steps or die to my sponsees.
Yes. But yeah, we're very liberal on it. And one thing that I think part of the goal of this show is right to like really broaden the term recovery and like who can own the term recovery, right? That yes, when most people hear that, their minds jump to substances, right? But there's all kinds of different addictions, right? And you can be in, from like process addictions, addicted to money or gambling or like lifting weights or whatever it may be, right?
Do that again when you
lifting weights.
You're obviously,
But even beyond that, like you don't have to ever have had an addiction to consider yourself to be in recovery, right? Like you're in recovery when you say you are. So if you're recovering from trauma, from imposter syndrome, from low self-esteem, from recovering from a fucked up family, like there's, I think everybody's pretty much in recovery from something.
Yeah. And I mean, how boring would it be to listen to an echo chamber with everybody who's been through the same thing and have the same viewpoints?
You love the big book?
Me too.
Oh, Spider-Man. Fucking.
But no, and obviously, so I met Patty. We were on a panel during South by Southwest for Sims Foundation. So I knew that you had the mental health aspect, which you spoke about on the panel, which was a great time. And it was a pleasure to be there for Sims Foundation. I know you are involved.
Yeah.
Sims Foundation.
Yeah. Well, my first involvement was as a client, and I'm still a client. Yeah. But I've been serving on the board since 2020. I feel like that's something that you and I, maybe all three of us, have in common, is that like we've benefited from these resources and these services, and then gotten to a particular place where we felt compelled or able or to turn around and extend a hand and do the same for others in a way.
Yeah.
And as someone who sits on boards and volunteers time, like anybody who is willing to make the sacrifice of sitting through board meetings and talking about, all the things that entail running some sort of nonprofit, like much respect.
Newsflash.
Yeah.
I am now on the board for the Face the Music Foundation, facethemusic.org.
Way to make it about you, Jason.
Well, it came up.
Tell us more about that.
Well, Face the Music Foundation is a nonprofit that helps people get help. It started as more of helping musicians, but it's broadened since then. It just helps people, does a lot of public outreach, mostly in the South Florida area, but not only in South Florida. So I will update more to come. As like I said, I just got named on the board there, so I'm excited about that
awesome.
too. So we're all Mexican to some degree. We're all on the board of something. So this is just,
wow.
We're big shots.
Yeah. But so, if and if you don't want to go into it, that's fine. But what first brought you to the Sims Foundation seeking services?
Mental health. I think for a long time, I did receive services outside of Sims for a while. Yeah. Even though I was definitely eligible. I think part of me was, again, feeling like an imposter. My stuff's not as bad as somebody else's stuff. I don't want to take resources from someone else.
I'm not good enough.
Yeah, or I'm not bad enough. Right? Like I'm not as bad as, it's okay, I can do it on my own. Or maybe that was like, just me having a hard time asking for help. Or
now I'm just curious where that urge to like not inconvenience people comes from. Like, how many siblings do you have?
I'm the oldest of 3.
Okay.
So, what?
So did you
this is just a therapy session is what I'm gonna.
Yeah.
This is what that's gonna end up being.
Did you grow up having to like hold shit down and take care of the younger ones and be the responsible one?
I feel like in a way I still do that to some degree. Yeah. Although that's part of my work, right? Like taking a step back from that stuff and going, that's not mine. Yeah. Like I'm here to love you and support you, but I don't have to carry that. That's not mine. I think it's a little bit easier now for me to do that now that I have my own stuff. I have my own family, my own husband, a kid. And it's like, I have enough stuff on my plate now. I don't need to take on your things.
Yes.
Is it liberating?
Yeah. Yeah. I like the fact that my family's stuff doesn't interfere, I think, with my daily life is better. I have more space for my stuff.
Yeah. Well, you
stuff
were saying,
that's actually mine.
So, married, you got a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. So 3 years that's really formative to me. Like, I think that's when they like start to figure out how they fit into the world, and you get to show them like how people should treat them and, how people should listen to them and all that kind of stuff, which is like, yeah, you should prioritize your family over other people's shit.
Yeah.
But so you're getting involved with Sims and you're like, oh, my stuff's not that bad. Someone else needs it more. But then eventually you decide to kind of put yourself first.
I think it was a little bit financially motivated for me at the time because, y'all, therapy's not cheap.
No.
So when you're a young person playing gigs for money, or I was playing gigs and also I was a nanny. I was a nanny for a long time. It was a wonderful job that was very fulfilling, that was very flexible. I could like go out and tour and come home to families that were like, please come back.
Yes, please.
So job security was there. But it was also flexible. So I did that for a long time. But it was, I think, more than anything, probably financially motivated for me. Like, well, let me see if maybe I can get some help. And because it was taxing trying to pay for therapy by yourself, full price. So it wasn't until I met my therapist through that, I was connected to them through Sims.
What year did you get involved with Sims?
Like 10 years ago. So 2014.
So that was like in the Jenny Vaselka days?
Probably, but I couldn't confirm.
Jenny, very tall,
Yeah.
very thin lady.
I didn't
Super
really, Sims didn't have a face for me then.
cool. Yeah.
It was just an organization. I didn't really know anyone, so it didn't have a face.
They had the little office off of like, what's the really cool street? Rainy Street?
Oh, did they have an office there?
Yeah, they had an office down. Anyway, sorry.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It didn't require me going to the
I'm
office.
real old.
To Well, it was nice because I didn't have to go to the office for them to determine eligibility and stuff. It was just a couple phone calls and some online forms and a lot of anonymity. And then I got paired with my therapist who was wonderful. And so I saw her on and off for probably like 7 years.
Yeah.
And she's great. And I think when you find a therapist that you really vibe with, that you really feel like you feel comfortable and you're making progress and you can be yourself and you don't have to have an agenda at all times or control the conversation or worry about what they're going to think about you. You can just like get in there and like emotionally vomit.
Yes.
That's the best.
I love it when you walk in, you're like, oh, I don't really have anything to talk about this week. And then an hour later, they're like forming you back into a human from a
peeling you off the floor. Those are maybe the best sessions when you walk in and you don't have an agenda. I think for a long time I walked in with an agenda because not necessarily that I wanted to control the conversation, or although maybe that was in the subconscious, but more that like, I don't want to waste my money. I don't want to waste my time. Let me walk in knowing exactly the things I need to work on and hit them just bullet point, one at a time. And I need to tell you about this. And I need to tell you, and what do I do about this? And that I think was keeping me from doing the real work.
Yeah. Yeah, that was huge for me too when I went to treatment. I'm just like, listen, all I need to do is stop doing fucking heroin. Like I don't have any of those issues.
Yeah.
And I remember one time with my therapist, it was like I went in there with answers I wanted to hear, and I wasn't gonna like be satisfied until that happened. And an hour later, I'm like crying, talking about stuff I didn't even know if I was not even, if I had a list, it probably wouldn't have even made like the top 100 of like things that I wanted to talk about. And I said, I was like, was that a breakthrough? Is that what that was? And she was like, yeah. I was like, well, fucking hell, this was pretty good.
Yeah. Shout out therapists.
Therapists.
Yeah.
The glue that keeps the society together.
America runs on therapy.
Hey.
An Excel spreadsheet.
Selection season.
Yeah. Oh, no, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
But
my best session was after I recently had started, I want to say it was 2019, after having recently started some medication, antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication, hadn't quite figured out the balance of those things yet. And I'm a small person, so I don't have I don't need a lot to start feeling stuff. And I was experiencing some adverse side effects from the drugs. Maybe I was taking too much or whatever at the time, figuring it all out. And I showed up in my pajamas, braless, no makeup, hair a mess. Not that I wear makeup. Hair a mess, just a mess.
Were these Cookie Monster pajamas?
No.
Okay.
And I can be sure of that only because I know I've never owned them.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, then you didn't hit bottom because Cookie Monster.
That wasn't bottom.
Cookie Monster pajamas is the.
So bottom is yet to come. Ooh, yay!
No,
ooh, yay.
I'm saying you avoided the true rock bottom. No, I'm just playing. So you walk in.
Yeah,
pajamas.
and I'm not trying to say like that was my rock bottom or anything, but like I think that was the best session I ever had because I just walked in a complete mess. I just laid down on the couch and just started bawling. I didn't have an agenda. I also didn't have a wall up. I wasn't overly concerned with what she was going to think about me.
Yeah.
And I just like let it all go. And I don't know if that was like a breakthrough session or whatever, because like I said, I was on drugs and feeling weird.
When you tell that story, I think about like, wow, like that therapist created like a super safe space for you, and the other thing I hear is that like, even amongst like that kind of falling apartness of that moment, right? Like you put yourself first and made a decision to go to therapy when it would have been super easy to just, order Ben and Jerry's and watch reruns of The Office or something, right? So that's like huge. That's actually huge to me. I think that's, I think that even like the healthiest human struggles like to like put their health first, right? Like not, for me, like I struggle a lot with like I eat whatever I want and I hate that I eat whatever I want, right? But like I struggle with that decision, all the time. And so I think anybody being able to do that and prioritize what's going to be the best for them, even if it's uncomfortable, is fucking, that shit's incredible.
Well, here's the thing. I was going to be uncomfortable regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to either be uncomfortable like hiding away in my bedroom, or I was going to be uncomfortable doing some work and being a little bit productive, I guess, with my time. Maybe not. I don't know. What am I doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. One foot in front of the other.
Yeah. Love it. So you mentioned meds, right? And you are a musician, which we've briefly alluded to several times in this show. But in getting on meds, did you have fears around like the meds impacting like your ability to be creative or your ability to, because I know that that's a fear that a lot of musicians, that I work with have about getting sober, right? They're like, will I be able to do this sober? So, I mean, was there any of that did you struggle with any of that?
I think mine was less about how is this going to impact my creativity and it was more just how is this, what does this say about me?
Yeah.
That I need to take these.
Yeah.
That I need this to be okay. And I'm not even saying that I did need it to be in order to be okay, but that's how it played out. That's how it happened.
Yeah.
I took some medication for a few years, and I think it did help me in the interim. And then at some point, I felt like I could handle it on my own, or I wanted to feel what it felt like to kind of remove myself incrementally from the effects of those drugs, just to get back to like what does it feel like just to be Patty? Yeah,
just to be present fully without
without it. And not to say that you can't be present with it, but it was just like it was routine. It became routine, and now it was like, well, I wonder where I would be if I wasn't on them now. I'm grateful to have them, and now I want to see what it's like without. Maybe it's not great still, and that's okay too.
Yeah. Well, what did you find?
I found that coming off of them was a little challenging, in that the same way it was kind of challenging getting started on them. Like your body needs time to adjust.
Yeah, that like
both
2-week
ways.
period of
and it's weird
getting on the antidepressants where it's like you're going to be in a very fragile state for a small time. Like that terrified me, but it still because I don't take any antidepressants or anything now. But when I was in going through treatment, the 20 times when I went through treatment, they had tried a bunch of different things, and they're like, this might make you feel like you want to do stuff to yourself. And
but it wasn't 20, right? It was 17?
20.
It was 20?
20 times in treatment.
I thought I heard you say a different number.
19 times in other places. One time at Recovery
One time at
Unplugged.
Recovery. That's what it was. Okay. Yeah.
For a baker's dozen, I don't know what a baker's dozen is.
13.
Okay, sorry.
But yeah, like that was one of those things. Like I would inject anything into my fucking body when I was using. Like I was a total trash can, and I would take seriously just about anything. I didn't care what it was. But then you take that aspect out of it, and I'm just like, well, I'm not taking that. It's going to make me feel weird.
I actually saw a psychiatrist once who put me on a bunch of meds, and I immediately decided to inject them. So
you get it.
Never took them as prescribed. Never.
What is that experience like?
Well, God, I want to say it was like Seroquel, Ambien, God, and something else. I think it might have been like little baby Klonopins.
Wow.
And I shot them all up.
How do you do that? Not that this is like an educational podcast on how to.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah,
you crush something up, you mix it with water, you rock and roll. And then when that didn't really do it for me, I traded them to a drug dealer
Did you?
for some heroin. Yeah.
And they took it?
Yeah, I want to. I mean, the Ambien, and I think the other one was little baby Klonopins. So, like, I mean, that's got some value.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good to know. Just in case. No, just kidding. Yeah.
I don't think Seroquel really has a high street value.
Have I ever told you my Seroquel story?
This scar is a Seroquel story.
So the one time that I did take Seroquel, it was actually when I was at Recovery Unplugged because I wasn't able to sleep because I was detoxing. I had a really bad detox. So they gave me Seroquel, and I took it the one night, and I was in a daze. I was obviously not asleep, but I woke up in the bathroom with a bottle of lotion. I'd unscrewed it and was trying to drink it. And woke up with a mouthful of lotion.
Do you remember what kind of lotion it was?
It was this weird, like peach-colored, super fragrant.
Oh no!
Like St.
Really gross. One of my roommates in treatment had it, and I just remember waking up with a mouthful of it, and I'm like,
did you ever make amends to that guy for wasting his bottle of lotion?
I think everybody laughed enough about it because I was like, and everybody came out and like, it's all over my face, and oh man,
what's your favorite kind of lotion?
To drink on Seroquel.
To drink. Well, if I'm going to drink it, I think it needs to be like no dyes, no perfumes.
See?
Yeah.
Like native.
That was my mistake.
Yeah.
I should have searched.
Yeah, you weren't that crunchy back then.
No, I wasn't.
So, okay. Eventually, right, you continue with your growth and all that cool stuff. And then you decide that you want to become a part of the Sims Foundation at some point.
Yeah.
Or maybe you were voluntold. Sometimes people end up on boards because someone's like, hey, you're on the board
You just
now.
stuck around long enough and they just started giving you they gave you an email address.
Yeah. Well, they didn't give me an email address because I'm not, that's only for staff. I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm not staff. But I did, with the Wind and the Wave, I did Music for the Mind, is an event that Sims has put on for several years. And so I did one of those, and then I'm not sure why it took us so long, but I met Carlos Sosa, and we started chatting, and he said they were looking for new blood on the board, and that sounded really interesting to me because I'm a musician, because I'm a client. I think at first I thought, well, is that a conflict of interest? But then I could see the value in, someone understanding the client side on the board as well.
Absolutely.
It just felt like Sims to me felt like an intersection of things in my life that I cared a lot about. Like, I love music. I've always loved music. And then mental health, ever since I kind of started to experience my own journey with it, and recovering from childhood traumas and eating disorders, and Sims felt like an intersection of things that I cared deeply about.
Right.
We haven't talked about this, but I started grad school in January to do clinical mental health counseling because I love it so much.
Call me when you're ready to do your internship. Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I'm still very early in it, but I always kind of told myself, I thought about it for a long, long time. And now that I have a 3-year-old and my priorities have shifted, I don't really want to be on tour away from my family. Unless I'm Beyonce and I can afford to bring them along and do absolutely anything I want to, which I can't.
Put your kid in the show.
Right. Like whatever. Yeah. There's money. So I don't want to be away from my family. Like I want to be home. And so I was that's part of it for me, is like, what do I want to do with the second half of my life? Mm-hmm. And I can totally see myself doing that for a living. And I feel like having had 10-ish years on the client side maybe makes me a little, every therapist should have a therapist at some point, but to avoid burnout and all that. But I feel like you need that to have some empathy for the client. And it just interests me. Interests me. It's very interesting. I love talking about it. I love talking about, like I was talking to you earlier, maybe before we press record, is that I'm not very good at small talk. I tend to kind of go deep, fast. Like
immediately.
You said, what's your trauma?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's what's interesting to me, is that we all kind of we come from somewhere, and we have a rich history of, we're all so complex. Yeah. And I think, and there's so much about the human mind that the smartest people in the world have no idea what's going on in there. So it's just like, it's interesting.
Was it a tough decision? Like, because I mean, when did you start performing?
2007.
And then to be able to make a living doing that must have been, you know, fulfilling some sort of dream, being able to tour, being able to see the world, being to spend a lot of time overseas.
Yeah.
And then to come to a place where you're like, I want to shift gears now. Was that difficult?
No, it's exciting. It's like I'm in this like transitional period where I'm still doing music. Like I'll probably have to take a semester off of school spring next year in order to tour a record.
Okay.
Not with The Wind and the Wave, with my other band called Far From Saints. That's what takes me overseas quite a bit, is this other band, Far From Saints, because one of the members lives in London.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like I'm saying goodbye to music to start this other thing. It kind of feels like just like a nice transitional period where I get to do both,
Right.
but in different seasons. Like sometimes I'm fully a mom and I get to put on this mom hat and like really enjoy being home with my kid. And then I get to take it off and put my student hat on and go to night class. And like, oh my God, learning at 37 versus learning at 20 is like a night and day experience. It's so fun. Like I love being there. I'm excited to be there because it means I don't have to cook or do bedtime for a night, you know, which I love my son. I love taking care of my son. But you know,
yeah. Oh, I
to
know.
take the hat off and to be a real human person in the world is a wonderful thing.
Learning is great. If I didn't have to like work or anything, like
Mm-hmm.
I would be a professional college student. Like,
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. And it's such a different experience doing it now in my 30s than it was in the undergrad. Like I didn't even know what I wanted to study when I was in undergrad. It was just like, just pick something and just do something. I didn't even take one psychology related course in my undergrad. Not even one. Not even, you know, the history of sex education. Nothing, you know. And so
The history of sex.
the history of sex, or like sex
In the beginning.
psychology of sex, or whatever it was.
The first sex happened at...
You could teach it.
Yeah.
I just remember there being like one like sex psychology class in my undergrad that like everyone was taking this.
Just a bunch of
class.
horny 20-year-olds.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I'm going to see a boob.
So, and they
The
probably
first
did.
boob. Ancient fossilized.
It was like Lucy, the Neanderthal. Anyway.
Ooh, ah.
Yeah. Like next to the fire. That was the first show. There's a boob next to a fire. Moving
All
right
right.
along.
But I think it would have been a waste. I mean, I didn't know what I want to study, but it would have been a waste had I started studying it at that point because I didn't even know who I was.
Yeah,
right.
You know, like I needed life experience in order to figure out that this was interesting to me, genuinely, you know?
Has parenthood kind of filled in that, like, I know who I am now piece?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes I think I totally know exactly who I am and exactly what I want. And other days I feel like a little aimless. And I think for me as a woman, it probably is very much tied to my cycle and the hormones that are going on in my body all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what phase you catch me in, what phase of the month.
Okay.
Luteal. I know that
Oh,
word. Luteal.
cute.
Follicular.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm married to a woman.
There you go.
She teaches me things.
Yeah. I'm still on that journey. I'm still like trying to be a better version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that ever stops.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, if you said that you had it all figured out at this
Nobody
point,
has it
exactly.
Nobody has it fucking
Nobody-
figured out.
no-
If anyone tells you they have it figured out or they have the answers, or then they're just trying to sell you something.
So as
Fucking
parents,
sociopaths.
both of you, I don't have children.
That you know of.
Was there a point when you realized, like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't think anybody ever has?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a bit of imposter syndrome as well, right? And I know I've had enough people tell me that, like, you know, they think I'm a good dad or they whatever, that like I know objectively that I'm a reasonably okay dad.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely better than my dad, right? But like I have this imposter syndrome around it to where, you know, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Never have, just kind of, and when you start to think you know what you're doing is right when your child moves into the next phase, like I've been a dad for 14 years, but this is the first time I've ever had a 14-year-old, I had to give him condoms the other day and I was like, I don't know if you need these, but you have them now. Bring it in for a hug.
Hopefully that went along with some conversation.
Yes.
And not just a picture of a boob.
It was great because I had these little. There's some group here in town that does like sexual wellness, like gives out these little Ziploc bags with like condoms and lube and stuff, and like a little card about like here's how you put on a condom and whatever. And so I got to give him like a whole little kit,
like a little care package.
Yeah.
See, in like the 80s, it would have just been left on the table
Yeah.
for the kid to find and been like, there's a pamphlet inside, and then check to see that it wasn't there. But
I didn't even get that. Anyway.
But hey, I think as a parent, like Google is your friend.
Yes.
And it can also be your foe.
It's also your,
It can also be your enemy, but like, you don't have to know it all.
I have a good buddy, Greg Butler, who just posted something about I don't know why there's something came over, but he said that what he does is whenever he's trying to have conversations with his kids about stuff, he's like, okay, how was I fucking up at the age of 14? I'm going to start with that and tell my kids about how I fucked up. And
right.
I just think that's like solid parenting advice.
Yeah.
Shout out Greg Butler.
So when we were on the panel talking at the South by Southwest event, a lot of things that we were talking about were...
By the way, I had imposter syndrome there also.
I did too.
Okay, good.
That was cool. So I'm pretty sure I know. So at least we were, you and I had imposter syndrome. I wonder if everybody else did.
You're
Probably.
like, I can't even afford a Soho House membership. Why am I in this
exactly.
building?
That was it. I was like, I'm never going to be allowed in here again.
Yeah.
And you and Gabby are off gallivanting in the elevators, looking around for everything.
I still have the bracelet they gave me.
Do you?
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun, that event. Once it got going, I started to feel a little bit more comfortable. I told myself, don't get over caffeinated beforehand, because I tend to do that a lot.
Yeah.
It was a good event. But we were talking a lot about needs for mental health and other services while on the road. I'm curious to think what your take on that would be. What would you like to see available for touring musicians and, their backing staff while on the road?
I feel like I touched on this there, but like there's all different levels of touring, some of it is super DIY, where there is you are the staff, you are the support for the staff, you are HR, you are billing, you are, like you kind of have all the hats. I have no idea what could possibly be available to musicians who are at that level, I have no idea, but for on tours where there's an actual budget, personally, I would love to see something like some physical activity taking place. Like obviously you can do that yourself.
Right.
And you have to do most things yourself when you're on tour. It's no different than being here, other than it's maybe a little bit more challenging, more hurdles. You're outside of your comfort zone. You don't know where things are. You're constantly figuring it out kind of from square one as you go. Whereas when you're home, the YMCA is right there. My favorite smoothie place is right there. Where all of the things are, and you have your comforts, the things that make you feel good and better. But when you're on the road, it's like you're starting from scratch every single day almost.
Yeah.
I think if I had the budget, I'd love to do like yoga every day on tour. If I had the budget, I'd like for there to be like a therapist on staff where and not just for the musicians, but mainly for everyone else, because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's like, I was saying this to someone the other day, it's like you're almost never alone on tour. There's people around you all the time, but it's very lonely.
It is. And that's one of the big things that we're doing with the Elsewhere program, is being able to help with that. And it's my vision is it for it to be extremely customizable, and to be available. I've been in talks with Sims, with Music Cares about making it available to the DIY bands, like even if it's just like an online therapy, or now that Recovery Unplugged is in so many locations, I can't even name them all anymore. I used to be able to.
You want me to do it?
Yes, go ahead. Where's Recovery
Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Northern Virginia, New Jersey, South Carolina.
And growing and expanding. So, not only do we have facilities there, we also have a huge alumni population that is just about everywhere. So we're going to find ways to make it. So the band in a van, who is, 4 people doing everything, road managing, road crew, to make these services available to anybody who needs it. That's what I really want to do out of this is, because the bigger bands, they could put an extra 50 cents per ticket on their tickets and have this whole thing paid for. But it's like the smaller guys who are, everybody has the stress, right? But when it's just you out there, I think that's why the name Elsewhere came from, is where you're like on the road, and like you could be in Chicago tonight, you could be in St. Louis, but you don't know. You're not home, and you're just sort of in this tour bubble where it's just repeat, and feeling alone in a room full of however big the stadium or theater is. It's a weird feeling that not everybody gets.
It's a weird thing because it's like, on one hand, you understand, or maybe you don't, that you're bringing so much joy to so many people in so many places. And it's a weird thing to be like providing support and bringing joy and to these strangers, people that you don't know, and simultaneously be going through whatever you're going through on the inside. You do want to be there, you don't want to be there. I remember I often feel like when I'm on tour, I'm missing out on my life, on my actual life.
Yeah.
Back home with my family or my friends or whatever. It's going on without me, and I'm missing it. And I feel that more as a parent, obviously.
Absolutely.
So before you were a parent and you would come home off a tour, was there like a decompression state?
Totally.
Where you like don't know what to do with yourself. You're pacing around.
It's weird on relationships. It's like, it's hard, but it's also a gift, like to have this time apart. I think for a relationship, I guess it depends on the people, right? Yeah. But it's like a good thing and an awkward, challenging thing, because being on tour, it provided me and my partner with an opportunity for us to like miss each other and long for each other. And which is a good thing, to like long for one another. You don't get that when you're day in, day out doing everything together. You don't get that. So in that way, it's like a really nice thing to have. But then the flip side is kind of like reassimilating into this like the normalcy of everyday life. I found that it is challenging. It's weird. My husband says that my presence feels different right when I get back from the road. I kind of feel like a slightly different person. And it's probably because I am a slightly different person. Like, I think I talk like a sailor.
Right.
When I come back from the road, yeah. I'm just, fuck this. Like, it's just nothing but curse words. But, and I think that, like, I'm not trying to do that, but it just happens naturally. I'm hanging out with the dudes. I want to be one of the guys. And crew too. Don't get me started, right? Like I like hanging out with the crew. So it's just, I get back and I sound like a crew guy.
One thing I kind of think about is like, you and I were both on this meeting this morning. So a friend of ours went to go see Kenny Chesney last night.
Is that fun? Bet that was fun.
I think he had fun.
Yeah, he sounded like he enjoyed it.
But he says someone in the crowd had a sign up that said, I'm actually here for therapy or something like that. And that Kenny Chesney pointed it out. And he was like, hey, buddy, we all are. And it kind of got me thinking about like, when I'm in a crowd, right, watching a show, right, there is a sense of emotional connection to the artist, right? And the only way for that to happen is for the artist to be emotionally pouring out, on stage. And like, that is a draining, thing, you know, as a therapist, right? Sitting with one person for an hour can be extremely draining. So, you know, I imagine that's, you know, having spent, you know, a month, 2 months, whatever amount of time, like on the road, like pouring that out, but also kind of getting recharged by it, and then ending up, and then coming home to like four walls and, you know, the comforts of domesticity, which might at first appear like, you know, like, oh, you mean I gotta go to the HEB? You know, like I gotta drive this kid to preschool. You know, like it's I think for a person to do like those emotional and mental acrobatics to shift back and forth between those two modes is probably in itself something crazy. And I think even for the road guys, right, who aren't performers, you know, just that same dynamic of like who, you know, your road person and your back at home person. You know? Like that shit's wild. I don't know. This is where my brain goes.
No, it's completely valid, you know, and it's like this completely, I mean, it's a jarring lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's exciting, and you get to Sometimes
it's really boring.
Yeah, the road from Omaha to Muskogee.
There's a documentary from the band Air, and it was called Eating, Sleeping, Playing, and Waiting. And I'm like, that's a pretty good, accurate description of
it's like 1 hour of the day.
Right.
That you are doing the thing that you love, the thing that is draining, but like you said, also recharging, the thing that you've been dreaming about since you were 3 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
And then depending on what your luxuries of the tour are, you pour it all out in a performance, drained, and then like now everybody wants a little piece of you afterwards and talk to you, and you know, you have to be there for the people that are paying to see you and interact a little bit or whatnot. And
little bit, but knowing your boundaries too.
Yeah.
Like knowing how to like preserve your own energy so that you can do it the next night and the next night and the next night.
How do you manage that when, you know?
Well, it's a lot easier not being on a DIY tour.
Right.
Like when you're your own merch person too, that is really hard because it's, how can you have any boundaries when you're also running your merch stand? Even just at this last Saxon show, like it was my birthday. So it was kind of a special show in that it was my birthday. It had been 6 months since I had performed with The Wind and the Wave at Saxon. And my friends were there, and like, I didn't do merch or anything like that because I usually don't bother with it. I'm just like, I don't even want to bother with it. But someone came up to me wanting to tell me something, right? How
the music
has impacted them, you know. And I so badly like want to not be perceived as cocky or rude, you know, when you meet people that you look up to, you want them to be a nice person so bad. And so like I so badly don't want to be rude.
But
at the same time, I want what's best for me too. And dude, and this is to no fault of this other person.
Right.
But I let this person take up all of my time.
Yeah.
I wish that I had been better about finding a balance between I hear you, I want to offer you a little bit of space, but also preserve some space for myself. I want to say hi to my friends. I haven't been here in a long time, you know. It's hard to strike that balance.
Right.
When you are made so accessible to people, whether, you know, I think social media makes it feel like everyone's super accessible all the time too.
The more attention you get, the more you're out there, the more you do interviews, people feel closer to you and like, oh, they know these stories about you, and then come up to you and they're kind of just like, hey, we're friends, right? And
yeah, it does feel that way.
Yeah.
The more you know about someone that you're close to them.
And you don't want to disappoint them, to be like, you know, hey, I appreciate you buying my records. I appreciate you listening. I so appreciate that this meant something to you.
Because you do.
Now I gotta go.
Now I have to go.
This is where the dual citizenship comes in handy. You could be like, no hablo.
The only English words I know are the ones in my songs.
Yeah.
And I barely even remember
That's
those.
how Selena was.
Yeah.
Selena didn't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
You know, she gave horrible interviews in Spanish. Like but she sang in Spanish. So. And I hate to be that guy, but we are getting towards the end of our time here today, which means that we've arrived at rapid fire question
Oh no,
time.
this is the worst.
It's rapid fire question time.
Oh, normally we prep people for this, and we totally didn't prep for you. We just started talking.
She said she watched a couple
Yeah.
episodes.
She said she watched them to the
I
end.
didn't get it to the
Yeah.
end though. I didn't even know this was coming.
Well, you should
We're just going to
have.
ask you 5 questions really fast.
Okay.
We're gonna take
Really
turns.
fast.
I'm going to start with one that I've been dying to ask this entire time. Do you consider yourself to be the wind or the wave?
I'm the wave.
Yes. And that's like an officially determined.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that's amazing. I was so worried you were going to be like, we get that every fucking interview and I don't fucking want to talk about it. But I love it. Okay. Sorry.
We actually have a song about it.
Oh, I didn't get to
We have a
that one.
theme song.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He is the wind and she is the wave, and together they make up the band they call the wind and the wave. I could go on, but I'll spare
That's
you.
pretty
I really liked the Canyon song. The Grand Canyon? Grand Canyon. Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet.
It's I was singing it by the second chorus. I was like, oh, this shit's catchy.
Yeah, it's because you relate to the troublemaker, huh?
I mean, who are we analyzing here? What's going on?
Who's interviewing who?
So is there, I know you guys did some cover songs, some great cover songs. Is there one that you really wanted to do that didn't make it out on there?
No, there's ones yet to be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would be your first choice in your next song to cover?
Strawberry Wine.
Leanne
Carter.
Deanna New Leanne Rises.
Strawberry Wine 7. Yeah.
Is it true that song's about periods?
I highly doubt it.
Okay.
Where did you hear that?
I don't know. I used to read Rolling Stone in the late
InfoWars?
90s.
I
I don't know. InfoWars. No, that didn't even exist when Strawberry Wine was a thing. Okay. Ben and Jerry's comes to you and they say, we want to make a signature ice cream flavor based on you and your preferences and whatever you want. What do you want to call the ice cream and what do you want to put in the ice cream?
Okay. I want it to be like a funfetti cake,
Okay.
but with some Oreos in it.
Yes.
So like a vanilla funfetti Oreo mix.
Yes.
We'll call it patty cake.
Patty cake.
Oh,
Love it.
That's a good one. I
Solid.
like that. Supernatural experience.
God damn.
Have you had one?
No,
No.
I'm kind of a skeptic.
Okay. As is he.
Yeah.
But he hates the question, but we've gotten some really good answers.
Yeah,
And
I
I
bet.
figured
I think we got like one really good answer.
because there was some Mexican heritage in there, because usually our people are very superstitious or have stories passed down, and it
I'm
gets
not
in their
very
psyche.
superstitious, but like I'm.
But you're a little stitious?
But I'm like I'm spiritual.
Okay.
So,
See, I feel like for like any Hispanic
know.
person, it's like, what's your favorite saint?
Yeah, that's a good one.
I have one.
What's your favorite saint?
I have 2. I like St. Francis of Assisi and I like St. Jude. St. Francis of Assisi, he was like rich and then gave away all his stuff and went to live in the forest with the animals. And then St. Jude is the patron saint of lost causes.
St. Jude.
Yeah.
I don't really know a lot of saints outside of, my saint,
Yeah.
St. Patrick.
There you go. Last question.
You don't have a favorite saint?
No.
Oh, that's a bummer. Okay. We gotta do another music
St.
question.
Vincent.
St. Vincent. The band?
Yeah.
The girl? Guitar player?
Another saint?
Yeah, she's a saint.
Okay.
I didn't remember. So you're having a bad day. What is your go-to music in the car to like fucking help you decompress and get back into, like-
bad day.
Oh,
Well, you know what?
God.
I'm going to make it more specific. Okay, you've had a bad day. You're coming home to your son, and you're getting ready to get back into mom mode, and you want to show up your best for him. What music do you play?
I don't feel like I have like a go-to thing every time. It kind of depends on like what I'm listening to generally in the moment. Because I tend to do this thing where like I wear it out,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And right now I'm wearing out Steven Wilson Jr.
Mhm.
I'm wearing the shit out of his record right now.
I've been doing that with Rainbow Kitten Surprise for like the past week and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I get it. I'm the same way. All right. Well, the last thing we do before we wrap things up is we give you the floor for the moment to say whatever you want. You know, if you got something you want to plug, if you've got, you know, if you want to leave a little bit of wisdom or a little whatever you want to do. It's your
Where
thing.
do we find you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't I apologize. I don't really have any wisdom. The older I get, you know, the more I realize how little that I know. And I feel like that's a gift because it allows me to just like learn more about myself and more about the people around me. And I want to stay curious. I just want to always be learning. Because then if you're not learning, then you're just dying. We are dying.
Yes.
What?
Yes. The slow
All of them?
deterioration of all molecular cells. And
Shit.
we're all dying.
Stay teachable.
Thank you so much for having me. Patty Lynn, Drew, Manchester the Third. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I have so many names.
So Patty Lynn is the official.
Patty Lynn. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Patty Kinskins. And I have 2 bands. The Wind and the Wave is a duo project I've been doing for the last 10 years. And I think our next show is at Saxon Pub on August 31st, I believe. You can go buy tickets now if you want. And then my other band is called Far From Saints. And our first record came out last summer. And I think our second record may come out in the spring of 2025. So I'm excited about that. And you can...
We'll have to have you back and do a perform. We could have our first performance
What?
here.
I have an idea for a co-headlining tour of Far From Saints and All Saints. And at the end of the night, the crowd votes on which band was better.
Is All Saints a band?
All Saints was
Because it's also a clothing brand.
All Saints was a moderately successful girl group in the late 90s, early 2000s. Their hit song was I Know Where It's At. That's all I remember.
It was fantastic.
Well, I love the clothing brand.
Yeah.
I like the clothings a lot.
All right. Well, maybe we get some free swag.
Yeah.
You heard it.
You heard it here.
Please, somebody sponsor us.
Send her some free clothes. Some All Saints clothes.
All we drink is good and gather. Target. Hit me up.
Topo Chico, where are you?
Yeah, we got off the Topo Chico train. Anyway, Patty, thank you so much for being here.
Patty Lynn, amongst other names.
Yeah, we appreciate your time, your candor, your willingness to talk to us about all sorts of silly and profound things.
Yeah.
In the span of an hour.
Anytime.
Yeah. And to you, our loyal listener, what camera? This one? Jason, which one am I looking at?
Yeah, that one.
I don't know. This one? Okay. Hey. There you are. To you, our loyal listener. Why did you do it? I can't fucking do it right now.
Thanks for watching. As Joseph always says, there's 1,000 ways in, there's 1,000 ways out. And we hope you find yours.